This is a webinar format, which means that attendees are in listen and view only mode with no ability to unmute or start your cameras. You'll be able to ask questions during the Q&A portion of the call by selecting the Q&A icon on your Zoom toolbar. Also, please feel free to use the chat feature to send any comments or feedback. And with that, I'd like to start the session by turning it over to Jason Hyatt. Jason, you may begin. And Jason, you are on mute.
Of course I am. Hello, my name is Jason Hyatt. As most of you are aware, I manage our commissioning programs for existing buildings as well as new constructions. This is intended to be a kind of open format so that we can kind of have discussions about the different programs and how they apply with House Bill 1257 and other aspects of your work. Next slide, please. As I said, my name is Jason Hyatt. Alex Inman will also be presenting. He will be going over most of the questions, discussions, and if there are any questions, if you could please put them in the Q&A, we will answer them either if they are immediately relevant to what we're discussing, or we'll most definitely get them during the Q&A portion of the day. Thank you. Next. What we are going to do is first go over the team from Resource Innovations. We'll do the obligatory safety moment that I'm sure that you have all been looking forward to. We have a few polling questions throughout to liven up the presentation and get you interested in the content, and of course answer the questions or ask any questions of your own that we can answer along the way, or we will answer during the Q&A portion of the event. After the event, we'll be sending out a survey for all of you to respond to. If you could send that back, we would much appreciate it. Next. For this safety moment, I made it seasonal for everyone since Thanksgiving is coming up. I think it bears noting that Thanksgiving is the leading day of the year for home fires. So a few safety tips to take into account while you begin your long holiday weekend is to, of course, test your smoke alarms to make sure they're functioning. Make sure that you have a fire extinguisher. And what I like to do is make sure that the people in my house know where it's at in case I am. It doesn't really help if I'm the only one that knows exactly where the hidden fire extinguisher is. Of course, don't leave your cooking unattended. Use a timer and keep children, any pets out of the cooking area and off the surfaces. And remember to remove any flammable surfaces or flammable materials near cooking surfaces. One of the stat on here is for those, and I feel like this is the group that is probably most applicable to. If you're frying a turkey, make sure that you constantly check the temperature and keep an eye on the oil itself. Make sure it's not smoking. If the oil gets too high, close to 400, especially when you introduce water or wind, you can have a combustible issue. One thing if you do have a fire that happens with oil, never use water to put it out. For that type of fire, you would always want to use a dry fire extinguisher. But for oil fires in your house, you can use baking soda and cream. Thank you. Next.
Thanks, Jason. Alex Inman here with Resource Innovations. I believe I probably know most of you here on the call. We at Resource Innovations are working with PSE, helping to promote their commissioning programs and the 4 tracks associated with that program. Our role is mainly of outreach and support for commissioning professionals and for your customers throughout their journey in pursuing incentives for commissioning projects. I'd like to start off with enrolling as a commissioning professional. I believe most of you, if not all of you, are probably enrolled. However, if you're not, or if you have somebody on your team who is not yet enrolled, it's a fairly simple one-page application, can be found on PSE's website. Should you need a specific direction toward that website link, definitely let us know. Fairly simple requirements. You must have 7 years of experience with commercial building operations and/or energy management. Again, the application and the process certifies an individual in the firm, not the firm itself. So if you've got multiple people within your firm who would be good candidates as commissioning professionals and possibly leads on commissioning projects, they would be good potentials to enroll into the program. And all providers that have been approved are listed on PSE's website in their directory. And that website shows the specific name of that person in the firm who is certified or approved, all their contact information, and will even indicate whether they have completed a project within the program or not. And the next bullet point on this slide, next slide. Catherine, there we go. These are some of the requirements, certifications that most applicants have under their belt: PE, BOC level 2, CEM, things like that. So if you in your firm or that person in your firm is looking to apply to become a certified professional and they have one of these certifications, they certainly are a good candidate for sure. Next slide. Here's our first poll question. We're wondering what aspects of PSE's commissioning programs work well for you and your customers. Great, Catherine, thanks for sharing the results. Appreciate it. Looks like most people said all the above. So, but we can go into more details on that later on toward the end of the discussion here today, for sure. Next on the agenda, guidance on the appropriate track. Some of you may be wondering and have had questions about what track within the commissioning program might be best for your customer. There are the 4 tracks: post-occupancy, tune-up, EBCx, which is existing buildings commissioning, and MBCx, or monitoring-based commissioning. For post-occupancy buildings, or for the post-occupancy track, excuse me, new construction or new buildings, those that may be in the design phase, as early enough as in the design phase, are certainly times when starting to think about commissioning that building once it is built and occupied. But ultimately, before the end of the building warranty is a good time to be thinking about and considering the post-occupancy commissioning. And that effort is really something that will complement what you're already doing with a building. Certainly, any new building that's built today will be commissioned. The post-occupancy commissioning effort also will help provide a guide, a plan for the transition of that building from the design stage or phase into the occupancy phase. And as we know, certain systems that have been designed and installed into a building may operate a little bit differently once the building has been occupied. But the post-occupancy commissioning effort certainly something to take advantage of before the end of the warranty of that new building. The tune-up commissioning effort is certainly for those buildings with less control options, simpler options, rooftop units, single zones, simpler controls, with no planned upgrades for those control systems. Or the customer is looking for a simpler, less time-intensive commissioning effort. They may not need the full comprehensive commissioning effort that, say, EBCx, the existing buildings commissioning track, would provide. For the existing buildings track, those are really larger scale projects with complex systems, a high potential for energy savings, customer commitment, customer buy-in, dedicated staff time to really support the commissioning effort. And those projects really benefit from a comprehensive commissioning effort and really maximizes that incentive potential. Some example projects might be a hospital, large multi-use high-rise building, other things like that, those types of projects that see a wide range of energy usage systems in them. The monitoring-based system also for large-scale projects with complex systems, high potential, customer commitment. Those really for buildings who take advantage of monitoring, fault detection, remote energy management are those key drivers for sure. And an example could be a campus setting, multiple buildings across a campus environment that all may be controlled by a central BAS system or would really benefit from a centrally controlled BAS system. So think about those types of projects you've got on your portfolio or on your horizon. And certainly we can provide that guidance to you and your customers in terms of the best track to take when pursuing these commissioning efforts. Next slide. And you may have asked, and we've been asked multiple times, can a project take advantage of two different commissioning tracks? And the simpler answer is yes, it can. For example, a project may pursue an existing buildings commissioning effort where it could then roll into a monitoring-based commissioning effort. Really depends on what the goal is of the customer. And we encourage you guys to set up a call with us to talk about those goals and to really help design a path forward, a best path forward to that benefits the customer's goals and will orient them and you as the commissioning professional toward the best track. The key difference, I think, between an EBCx and an MBCx, the existing buildings requires more deliverables, yet has a higher commissioning phase incentives. So a higher opportunity for incentives, yet there's more, a larger comprehensive effort involved in the existing buildings commissioning track. But there is the potential to mix and match between tracks. Existing buildings can turn into a monitoring-based style project with additional performance periods. So you could start with existing buildings in the assessment phase, work through the install phase of those identified measures into the performance phase, and then you could even add another year of performance. So you could have 2 years of performance incentives available for that particular project. So it's really best to work with us and really talk through the project scope and the scale and determine what might be the best avenue to take for you and your customer. Lastly, I think another example might be a post-occupancy to, say, Tune-Up or EBCx, where the commissioning effort just may take longer than the building warranty might allow. So the building warranty might lapse when you're pursuing a post-occupancy effort. However, we could easily roll into a Tune-Up or an EBCx commissioning track should the project really warrant that kind of effort. So it's really best to reach out to us, communicate with us, we have the flexibility to really work with you and your customer to make the best option for you, for sure. Next slide. And we want to talk about some of the support reminders that we and PSE are providing to you as commissioning professionals and your customers. We have marketing materials. We've developed program-wide, larger, high-level one-sheets that give high-level information about all 4 tracks, as well as individual tracks and one-sheets for you to share with your customers. Those are available online on the website to download. We can also share with those with you should you need a direct email from us for those. We can provide pre-application guidance, excuse me. We can help with the site evaluation and scope and the customer needs to determine the best track for you and your customer. And it's really about working with us early on in the process, bringing us in to really help educate you and your customers the benefits of commissioning and really help understand the requirements of the program, the value of the program, and bringing that to the customer, bringing that to the table. We are here to help assist you with deliverables and what is required in terms of deliverables. They're intended to really replicate what you may already doing for your customers in a commissioning effort. Without too much of a heavy lift beyond what you may already be doing for your customers in a commissioning effort. So those are really designed to benefit you and your customers in their path forward of energy savings and continued energy savings year over year, not just a one-time thing. And lastly, collaboration with PSE and their staff and us, Resource Innovations, as an outreach effort. We're here to assist you and your customers in helping to identify good projects, helping your customers understand the value of commissioning, help you understand as a commissioning professional what some of your requirements are for participation, and then bringing that best value to market and to your customers. Next slide. One little note on Clean Building Standard. I know we're all familiar with Clean Building Standard, House Bill 1257. There's now that letters have gone out to building owners. Some of you may have been receiving calls from customers, potential customers, about the law and how it impacts you and your building. Of course, it applies to all commercial buildings, 50,000 square feet or greater. Compliance isn't due for a few years. 2026, I believe, is the first round of compliance for those big buildings. But that will happen sooner than a lot of people think. It takes time, and I'll go over a sample timeline here in just a little bit. That standard is also to adopt mandatory performance-based energy efficiency requirements based on ASHRAE 100. It's to establish that EUI target and to meet those targets. There are early adopter incentives, and that information is available on their website. That link is down there at the bottom. I talked about compliance. There is this penalty up to $1 a square foot per year for non-compliance. So it certainly has some teeth to it. Certainly something to think about when you're talking with your customers, and the time with which it takes and the potential for a penalty. And lastly, I think there's one last point on this slide. Next slide. In that the compliance as the building owner is their obligation to comply with this law. So they are certainly on the hook for this compliance, this law, and ultimately the penalty. So working with them to understand those requirements certainly can help. And of course, PSE's commissioning efforts is a great way to make headway toward compliance of this law. Next slide. There's kind of a lot going on in this slide, we understand. This is a sample timeline. If a customer or a building owner were to pursue the investment criteria path for their building for House Bill 1257, the Clean Building Standard. I'm not going to read everything on here, But I think what we're really trying to talk about and really trying to get across to you as commissioning professionals is how long it could potentially take to begin a project, or even before you begin a project, to get through the time it takes to reach compliance. Should a building not have been benchmarked? Starting in 2022, setting up Energy Star Portfolio Manager, you will need a year of benchmarking. You will then possibly need a investment grade energy audit. Those could take 3 months, 6 months, or more. You may need to implement some of those cost-effective EEMs that could take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. There's an M&V period, which could take a few months. So if you think about it, all the necessary steps to take to begin to reach a point where you are then measuring your energy usage, which then would need to be submitted to the Department of Commerce as a path toward compliance, could easily take at least a couple of years or even a few years. So those building owners who you're talking with, who may say, oh, you know, I can wait. It's not top of mind right now. I've got other priorities on my mind. It's certainly a good idea to remind them that the effort involved in reaching compliance, should they be quite a ways out of compliance, could be a few years or more. And so I think this slide, while it's a sample, certainly gives a pretty good indication of the time it could take going through a project, or just going through the necessary steps to meet compliance for the law. You layer on top of that, you know, a commissioning effort or some kind of other capital type project, and it only just adds to the time. So really, I think it's critical for building owners to be understanding that they shouldn't be waiting. They should be acting now, particularly those larger building owners, those that are 220,000 square feet and up, where their compliance is due, I believe it's June 30th of 2026. It's not the end of 2026, it's mid-year. So certainly something to think about when you're having conversations with some of your customers. Next slide. And here's our second poll question. Please indicate the barrier or challenge you most often encounter when enrolling a customer or project into Puget Sound Energy's commissioning program. Any one of their 4 tracks. And I forgot to ask if there was ability to have multiple, people could indicate multiple answers. I guess we should have gone through that earlier.
Just a reminder for attendees to please open up your chat function. There's important information on there. And Alex, I'll pass it back to you for you to address the poll results.
Great, thanks, Catherine. So right now, the most popular answer, customers' lack of knowledge of the benefits of commissioning. Second would be cost to implement a commissioning project. Okay, good to know. All right. So from the first question, I believe the most popular answer was all the above. What works well for you and your customers? Good to hear. certainly something that gives us confidence that we have designed a program that is beneficial and provides something that you can really take to your customers to give them a good option for energy savings. Catherine, is it possible to post the results so I could see them?
The polling results?
Yeah.
Yep, I had shared those, but I can share it again.
Yeah, if you
The
could
last
share it
question.
again. Yeah. Actually, the first question.
Okay. There we go.
There it is. Great. Okay. All the above was, most popular. The incentive structure, incentive amounts was the second, and then identifying the track was the third.
I think what stands out the most for me
Yeah.
is the least clicked on, the application and deliverables.
Deliverables. Yeah.
And I think just to touch on that, I know that wasn't the specific reason for this poll, but it does stand out. I mean, I think I love telling people I work with. I think Alex has heard me talk about how much how I disdain deliverables or documenting, specific things of the work. If I could, I would love to just prance along in a meadow of flowers and be on my merry way after I'm done. And I will say that for especially the application deliverables, we really try to work with each individual commissioning professional's specific work process, workflow, to make sure that while we're asking for specific M&B requirements, that we as closely as possible align with what perhaps you're already creating, so that we're not putting you behind a desk. Because our number one priority is to have you in the field doing the work and trying to minimize what we really need for the M&B and deliverables as much as possible. And if you have any suggestions or comments that you'd like to give to Alex or myself, please shoot them to us or put them in the Q&A, and we would love to address if you have any concerns. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And yeah, just to reiterate, I think what we're really trying to do is not add more busy work to you and your effort, really trying to provide support to documentation, deliverables that you would already be doing anyways during a commissioning effort, and providing you with support for those efforts and providing you and your customers with some financial assistance to cover the cost of developing those deliverables, those plans, those documents that really help support an ongoing and persistent energy savings effort year over year. Any questions or comments from the audience about what works well for them and their customers, what they really find beneficial about the offering right now, the commissioning tracks, any positives about that? I'm not sure if participants are unmuted.
We would have to unmute them specifically. So if they have any questions, if they just put them in the Q&A, and we can unmute them if there needs to be any sort of elaboration or what have you.
Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next question. Not the next slide, the next poll question and those results. customers' lack of knowledge of the benefits of commissioning. It's the top one, and then cost. Okay, I would say lack of knowledge. I think it's to play devil's advocate. It's really our effort and your effort as a commissioning professional to help a customer understand what those benefits are. We are certainly here to help provide that support in our marketing efforts. I think we have talked about the program and what the program provides in terms of incentives, energy savings benefits, things like that. However, maybe we've missed the mark a little bit on what it is that a customer can see as a benefit beyond just an incentive from PSE. And I think moving forward, maybe we could start to think about some non-obvious benefits, energy savings, but then maybe there's some non-energy benefits that customers could benefit from. There are always plenty of those that a building owner can recognize when completing any kind of energy efficiency measure moving forward. Cost is one of those things right now, as we know, with supply chain issues and inflation and everything. Let's hope that that's just kind of a temporary situation. We do know that following COVID, even though we're still in the grips of it, cost is a challenge for a lot of people. I would say that the program certainly helps to offset a good portion of the cost of implementing a commissioning effort, from the implementation phase through the performance phases. Certainly, if you put the effort in to implement a rock solid commissioning effort for a building, that building owner will see a financial benefit from it. There may be some skin in the game from the owner at the beginning to cover some of those initial costs. And then the incentive covers those after the fact. But there are mechanisms, and we can talk about those in just a little bit, to minimize that a little bit or lessen that out-of-pocket expense a little bit. So, Jason, any other thoughts beyond that?
I mean, obviously, as a utility and just the nerd that I am, I always tend to veer the discussion towards, Alex was saying that, the energy savings, speaks for itself. Here's the incentives that's available to you from PSE, but there's also some value added that I think most of us are aware of, that probably aren't as sexy as energy savings and getting that money from the utility, which are of course my favorites. But the longevity of equipment, I think is something that people really think about. Instead of having to replace that pump every in 10 years, setting up a maintenance plan to keep it going for 15, 20 years or however long, much longer, so that they can save that operation and maintenance budget for something that they really want to do, or reducing the amount of unplanned outages, or when they're not actually going to be able to heat their building, cool their building, or whatever, the equipment might go down, or actually being able to plan your maintenance items or your capital improvements, going through and being able to identify each and every the larger pieces of equipment that might come up during your investigation, to be able to identify, hey, like, just so you have this 30-year-old boiler, it's on its last legs, I'd start thinking about budgeting like 5 years, which is a lot better discussion to have and could potentially lead to future projects for you down the line. But it's a much better conversation I think the customer would like to have than to have hey, your boiler's not working. you really need to deal with that now. But those are a few things, while speaking of kind of value add. But I think there's definitely a lot more that perhaps myself, being guilty of, are not waving all the flags. I more stick to the analysis and the quantifiable. That's all I got.
Yeah. And I would say one last point to make when talking about when you as a commissioning professional are out talking with customers and you're mentioning the incentives from PSE, the program, sometimes there could be some hesitancy if a program representative is not there during those conversations. So I would encourage you as a salesperson who's talking with a potential customer to include us in those conversations. We certainly can bring some value to the conversation in terms of providing that support, giving maybe some reassurance, building some trust that the program is there to provide them with the support that they need. Those as ratepayers certainly are due, not so much due, but they certainly are qualified to take advantage of any offering that the program can provide to them. So bringing us into those conversations at any time of the program design, or I'm sorry, the project design, or during the conversation is really a great way to bring validity and build that trust that some people may feel they need in order to commit to a project that ultimately could cost them some money, but in the end, save them some money, save them energy, and provide them a plan moving forward to not only meet energy savings goals, sustainability goals, but also to put them on a path toward compliance of that clean building standard law that has certainly got some teeth to it. All right, we've got some final questions, some common questions, next slide, that have been asked over the months from you as commissioning professionals. And I'd like to bring those up here just so you're all aware of some of these answers. One, are there limits to the number of projects a service provider can submit for incentives? The answer is no. I would say if there is a commissioning professional who's submitting 10 projects a week and we're really starting to hum along at a very fast pace, we might have to start to take a look and say, okay, what kind of ultimate budget does the program have? But in the meantime, no, there are no limits to the number of projects a service provider can submit for incentives. How do I know which PSE program, commissioning, pay for performance, commercial, SEM, strategic energy management, or some kind of custom project is right for my customer? Ask us. We're here to help you and your customers develop a plan moving forward that can really put you on a path to determine the right path forward and the right program forward for energy savings and capitalizing on as much in terms of incentive as you can get for your project from PSE. In MBCx, monitoring-based commissioning, in the second year of performance, remember there are 2 years of performance incentives potential for MBCx. Does the project need to save an additional 6% savings over and above the first year? That 6% is a threshold. It's kind of a minimum threshold. Anything above 6% savings pays an incentive. And the answer is no. The project must maintain 6% savings during the first and second years of performance. So in the second year, you do not need to save an additional 6% over the first year's level of savings. It's not a rolling baseline. It's the initial baseline from day one of that project. I have a project that is in PSE gas only. Will it still qualify? Yes. I would say gas savings needs to be, or gas usage needs to be something other than a small water heater for a shower or some minor gas usage. We're looking at projects that have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but we're looking at projects that have gas usage as space heating, most likely, and things that have a somewhat not significant use, but higher usage than just a minor little bit of gas usage over the portfolio.
Their primary heating source.
Yeah,
I think is the best way. I know there's like Alex was saying, a small domestic hot water load obviously is not something that we can really affect with operational maintenance on a significant level. Well, I do suggest customers keep an eye on that. And there's also buildings that use perhaps gas as an auxiliary heat source that would not necessarily be I guess as a gas only a good candidate for the commissioning program.
Great, thanks. And then, can the incentive be paid to the commissioning agent or contractor as opposed to the customer? And the answer is yes. I talked about that out of pocket a little bit ago for customers, and that may be a little bit of a barrier, that out of pocket cost upfront to initiate a commissioning effort. Here, a incentive could be assigned to the contractor as opposed to the customer, and then with the idea that that is discounted from the customer's ultimate out of pocket costs. So a little less of a sting to them in terms of out of pocket costs. And then, does PSE offer incentives for metering or sub-metering? The answer is yes. Next slide. Here's a page about the incentives for metering. They are for existing buildings commissioning efforts or for major controls upgrades, HVAC upgrades. I'm not going to go through all the details of this slide. Fairly simple requirements. PSE customer, you need pre-approval. Capacity for trending with graphical interface visible by your EMS, your energy management system. Needs to be integrated with the EMS, your building EMS, DDC controls, and at least 3 years of data storage using that DDC EMS or other method. So I've been asked a few times if there are incentives available for metering. There is a path to take for the compliance with the House Bill 1257, the Clean Building Standard, which involves some sub-metering of your campus or your building. And here is certainly a way to help cover some of those costs potentially. But reach out to us if you've got questions or a potential project that could benefit from that, and we can certainly talk about those details for sure. Next slide. Here's some additional resources. PSE's commercial program, My Data Tool, the Clean Buildings Accelerator, which we didn't go into much detail, but it is a program to help those customers who need an extra hand, an extra assistance in pursuing the compliance of the Clean Buildings Law. It's kind of a strategic energy management-ish cohort type program for those, like I said, those building owners who need a little extra assistance in developing a plan moving forward for compliance with the law. Stillwater is the implementer of that and assisting with that Clean Buildings Accelerator. There's the Department of Commerce, and then emails at the bottom for Commerce and Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And I think the last slide is our contact information. Email there at the top, mine and Jason's email at the bottom. Any specific questions, concerns, projects you've got, contact us directly if you need to. Any questions? Answering this question here.
And it looks like there was a question in the Q&A.
Yeah, wondering someone wants to schedule a meeting with me. I just entered my email and phone number. Give me a call or send me an email, either one, to set up a quick chat.
Hi, Alex. If people are interested in meeting with you one-on-one, how can I go about that exactly, you or Jason?
I would say email or phone call. I am in the Portland area, so but certainly happy to travel up to the Seattle area as needed for any one-on-one in-person meetings as needed. But by all means, send me an email, give me a call. I think Jason's probably got the same answer.
Yeah. And I'm in Seattle, so my electronic meetings will be that much quicker. Yeah, and hopefully here in January we'll be doing some face-to-face meetings. Can't wait. It's been a long time coming. And I'd like to just kind of reiterate, something Alex said. Like, I think, and I've heard from contractors, commissioning professionals in the past that sometimes getting the customer to understand the program has a certain a weight to it. I think it's the complexity of explaining operational maintenance, the theory of the savings, and where the savings and costs are going to come from. It can be a little tricky. And I have had some contractors, and not just for commissioning, but also other programs that might be on the little more complex side, that having, like Alex or myself, someone from the utility, just have a conversation with the customer just to go over the project specifics really does help a lot. And I think that's one thing that Alex, our Resource Innovations, as well as PSE, really wants to kind of highlight, is that we are a resource for all of you guys, as well as for the customers, to help understand the programs, the process, with a little bit more clarity, so that they can have the confidence to go into these different programs. And we have a lot of flexibility that is kind of baked into these programs. So I did mention earlier that we really want to have these programs kind of really blend in nicely with your business model, your processes that you've already have implemented that work for you. So if there's anything, and we've kind of tried to make specifically the monitoring based program more modular, so it can work for a multitude of different customers, as Alex was discussing earlier, where if you are going through the more extensive route of doing existing building commissioning, we fully endorse doing the existing building commissioning and the monitoring based commissioning programs together to get the maximum savings that they possibly can, and to possibly push the building into more operational efficiency. We also are interested. I think we have, as we've moved on, we've seen the market kind of shift for new construction, where there's a lot more interest in implementing monitoring type commissioning early in the construction phase. And that's another thing that we would work with you to kind of combine these programs as well. But I think I kind of went on a little bit there, I hope. But I think just all in all, just make sure that if there's any questions or if there's any way that we can make the wait a little bit lighter, Alex, myself, all of our respective companies are like a resource for you, and we want to be help as much as possible to make these programs successful moving forward.
Hi, Jason and Alex. There's a question in the chat from Justin regarding where can we find the one-sheeters you mentioned on each program path?
Yeah, Justin, I believe they're on the website, but send me an email with your email and I'll send those to you directly for sure.
And a good way, we have a, you know, of course we have a website, but we have a landing page for all the different programs. And just as for everyone's information, if you go to pse.com/CX, that'll take you to the landing page of all the different commissioning offerings. And we try to make it as simplified as possible so you can get to any of the documentation that you need. But there's a good source for all of the different collaterals that we have.
And I'd like to say finally, if there are ideas, questions, complaints, concerns about the program design itself, be it the incentives, the deliverables, things that you feel as a commissioning professional are maybe a little confusing for your customers, or things that could just make it better, by all means, let us know. We are certainly here to respond to those in a way that, you know, hopefully can make the best possible offering to the community in PSE's territory. It's a new enough program, and I may be speaking a little out of turn here, Jason, I don't know. It's a new enough program that I think we have the ability to pivot on occasion to make some design changes to the program to really make it better for people should those changes really benefit the program, benefit the customer for sure.
I think that just generally speaking, we are open to any sort of flexibility that we can offer, but also any suggestions that are given, I think bear a lot of weight for you guys that are in the field doing the work. We don't want to be a barrier to success. We really want to really just have the the customers and yourselves best interest involved, and really look towards making the process as easy as we can. But of course, as mentioned earlier, if I could, I would love to remove any sort of documentation. But as a regulated utility, I mean, there is some things that we have to stick pretty tight to, just to make sure that we can report the savings that we claim in the end. But there are many different ways to report, record, and provide documentation to us. So we're definitely very flexible in like how we work with each other. And I think Alex, myself, we've had several meetings with commissioning professionals where it's adjacent slightly to how they do their process. And I think one thing to bear in mind is that we're really interested in the overall outcome. We want it to be a successful commissioning program, and we need documentation to show what was done. But if it's not exactly like the same table that we have or the same spreadsheet that we have, we're not one to really hold anyone's feet to the fire for that sort of specificity.
And Brian Zoller put the link to the one sheets, it looks like, into the chat. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Management programs. Commissioning, there they are. Yeah,
Thank you,
nevertheless,
Jason and Alex. Any closing comments?
none more. I just want to say thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your attending. Those few questions that came in were really good to hear. And if you've got any other comments, questions, by all means, let us know. We're here to help out.
Yeah, if any questions come up after you've percolated the content a little bit, please feel free to reach out and we can schedule a time to talk. But thank you, everyone.